In this video, we're going to learn the basic syntax, function, and execution in using JavaScript. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. What is JavaScript? It's a dynamic programming languages that uses for web development, web application, or game development, and lots more. It's a text-based programming language using both on the client side and server side that allows you to make web pages interactive. Also, it's a scripting language that enables you to create dynamically updating component, control media, or even animate images, and much more. For better understanding, we're going to perform or discuss each step and learn the basic concept of JavaScript. So let's get started. To start with, this is the basic approach in learning JavaScript. If you have learned HTML and CSS, JavaScript performs the third very important components in creating a web page. In the statistics way back in 2019 and 18, JavaScript leads on top. And that same goes with the modern for this year, 2021, wherein this top front end came, and that makes JavaScript is one of the popular programming languages, most especially in web development. So, what again is JavaScript? During the early days, JavaScript was written in this manner, but in that time, before they put some languages and attributes, but later when HTML5 came, this basic syntax has already been omitted, and HTML5 just retain this simple script like this one. So let's examine. So basically, this is our HTML. And as you recall your HTML, this is the head section where usually we store our CSS and JavaScript as well. Now, within the JavaScript, we can declare that using within a link or within the body. But for this demonstration, we're focusing on the body part. So let's start. In every JavaScript, we started with hello world. So to do that, we need to type document .py and hello world. Okay. As you can see, this is my preview on the right part. So if you're examining that using the inspect or even the view page source, so this is the basic preview as you scan it within the HTML page. So this is where the part where our HTML document position. So that's the good thing with JavaScript. Now another thing is, when you learn JavaScript, it's not only to perform some execution. This serves as the operational part, also wherein for CSS to enhance its, you can say, beautification, JavaScript performs or serves a good role in doing some extra step in displaying your HTML page. So, to know more, we'll discuss one by one on how to use JavaScript. First, we need to understand first the following. So in every programming languages, very important to know how does JavaScript handles a variable. So for this example, I'm going to declare here my sample variable. So for instance, like this one, my variable. In JavaScript, you can declare that in this manner, or you can also call that in this way and assign the value. Let's say fish. Also, in JavaScript, you can declare this or assign this as one line. Let's say I'm going to preview this one. I'm going to copy that and put that in this section here. There you go. Now, aside from string, variables in JavaScript can also accept integer, even float, even Boolean. So that's how JavaScript handles this variable. So if you are familiar with basic programming, so these variables are very important. So same goes here. So there's no limit to that. So that's on the first part. Now next. Now after learning the variables, the next thing we need to learn now is how to create or set up the comments. So but first, what is a comment? Comment is let's say you want to ignore something. Let's say I don't want to run this part here. So we simply put a comment. In JavaScript, this is one of the type, or this is how you implement the comment. So if you want to omit something which is not, if you don't want to execute a certain part, you can use this comment in this section. Now there's two ways for this. So this is the first one, the double slash slash, which is the forward. And then the second one is you can write a multiple block of comments. So to do that, let's say from this point to this point, you can extend that with an asterisk. Okay, so this is how you operate or set up your first comment, or if you want to put some comments on JavaScript. The importance of comment also is to label a certain operation. Let's say for this one, you can tell that this is to demonstrate on using a comment. Okay, so you can also do that. Nowadays, when doing some programming, you ensure that you need to put comments. So this is very important. So just take note, in JavaScript, you can do it in two ways. The first one is double slash, and the next one, if you're planning to block or comment the entire line, you can do in this manner. So simply slash with an asterisk and a closing asterisk with a slash. Okay, so that's how you declare a comment in JavaScript. Let's clear this up here. Okay, now that we understand the basic usage of variables and comment, the next thing we need to learn now is how to handle operators. So let's discuss these type of operators. So the first one is we're going to learn about arithmetic. So if you are know the basic concept of arithmetic, simply the basic operating, let's say performing addition, subtraction. So those are some arithmetic that we are commonly known. So to demonstrate, let's say I have a value of x is equals to 5 and y is equals to 10. Take note, guys, that in this manner, we can create or assign a variable within a straight line. So like this one. So we can separate that within the comma or with a comma. So you can declare one single line of all those type of variable. So let's apply the basic arithmetic. Let's say from here, I'm going to assign that in variable z. Then from Z, I'm going to perform a basic operation, which is addition. So this one here, I get the value of bar X and bar Y. So I'm going to print out that. Here you go. So aside from this one, we can also perform a first, if that is addition, let's try with subtraction. There you go. And also the multiplication. And of course, we have also the division. And division remainder than 1. So that is the x, let's say x% 2 or mode 2. There you go. So this is how, for the basic example of using arithmetic. So if you're planning or doing some mathematical operation, JavaScript can perform as well this certain operation. So that's the parts in operators. Now, cover up. The next thing we need to discuss now is how to use the pause and pre increment. Okay, let's say I have a variable of 5. In JavaScript, you can also perform the auto increment. So when you say increment, it means that this increment by 1 or adding with a value of 1. So let's say for this one, I'm going to increase that. So how to go perform a pause increment? So by simply x plus plus, which means this is a pause increment. So if I save this one, there you go. So this is how pause increment works. Now how about free increment? So this is a free increment. So incrementation decrease with 4. So to do that, we simply reverse the function by simply add the plus plus then x. So if you're going to save that, there you go. So that's the difference between a pause increment and free increment. Now same goes. We have also what you call the pause decrement. So in pause decrement, that is x. Let's say this is the variable, and we reverse the function by using minus minus. So if it is a pause decrement, there you go. So this is how you preview with the pause decrement. Now how about pre-decrement? So if it is a pre-decrement, so take note, I'm referring to the lower part or the lower operation. So just simply reverse this operation here, then save, and there you go. So that's how you operates a pause and pre-increment. Okay, so that at this point here, we already learned how the basics or how to manipulate the variables and do some arithmetic operation. Now let's proceed with the next one. Now at this point here, we're going to learn how to work with strings or concatenation. So let's say I have a value of 5. I let's say going to have a value of hello, and B is, let's say, world. Okay, so let's try that. So what happens if you are going to concatenate a string? So in JavaScript, you can view that as A plus B. So if you save that, and you will get hello world. Now, this is one thing good with JavaScript. There's no particular rule with that. Unlike in normal programming like Python or whatever stuff in the desktop programming, very important for that is to declare that particular variable. But in JavaScript, whether it's a string or a variable or a integer, let's say this one, I'm going to change this to 5. See? Whether it's a string or a integer, it doesn't matter because this will return a concatenation as long the match, let's say, if these both are both integer, as long this will recognize as an integer. So whatever operation, let's say this is a concatenation of plus, so let's say going to perform that, it will automatically perform the operation as needed. So let's say these are both integers. So JavaScript already detect that these both are integers. So this output displays or perform the operation as plus. But a while ago, when we insert the string, since in the normal way, since we cannot add a variable of integer with a string, what it does in JavaScript is it will just concatenate or just combine this regular expression. So that's how you work with operators with string. Now let's proceed on the next one. Okay, this time we're going to discuss about comparison operators. Okay, so let's say I have a 5 and B. Let's say this is 10. It's 10. Oops. And C, let's say I have, let's say 6. Okay, so this is how we compare or return a comparison. Now, what are the things allowed in comparison? In JavaScript, you can perform like this one. So this equals mean is that A is equals to C. So if that's the case, okay, better going to put that in here, inside this one here. Okay, so if I save that, there you go. In comparison operators, very important is we need to know how to use these conditional or comparison operators. So in here, we're comparing A to C. So where in fact A is 5 and C is 6. So what if we apply this triple equals? Same goes. In JavaScript, much common JavaScript programming, you can declare equals using only these two equals operator. Also, you can also apply this 3 equal operator. That's also serve is equal as well. Now, how about this one? In comparison, we can also compare, let's say, not equal. So let's say you're going to say that, which is true. So let's say A is not equal to C. So definitely because they are not the same. So this display here as true. Now next, aside from not equal, we have also this one, the greater than. If I save that, returns false. Also, we have the less than, true. And let's say if A is greater than B. Okay, so that's it. So you can also perform like this one. And also the most common is the greater and equal. So if I'm going to place that, so greater equal to B, and also the other one, which is less than equal to b. Okay, so that's how you compare using operators in JavaScript. Now that we learn comparison, so let's move down to the next topic. So this time, we're going to discuss about logical operators. So let's say I still be using this one. Okay. Now, what are logicals or logical operators? So this is a comparison between more than operation. So let's say in here, I'm going to extend that. So let's say A, let's start with A is not equal to B. Let's say that. As you can see, still true. Now, using comparison or logical operators, we can compare that simply by using NN. Oops, NN. Let's say A is less than B. Okay, so let's see how it goes. There you go. Now, there are other ways to make a comparison. Aside from this one, we can also apply the OR. So let's say in OR, you can simply apply this operation. So this one. So this serve as a OR. So let's say A does A is greater than B. And B or B is equals to, or A is equals to B. So but in mathematical approach, it's always within the parentheses starts the comparison. So let's say here this will evaluate this first part, and then this will evaluate on the next part. And at the end, this will apply the logical operators. So let's say going to save that. There you go. Okay, so that's it. Also, in logical operators, you can also perform the NOT. So let's say, how do you represent a NOT? A NOT is a reverse function. So let's say I'm going to perform that in here. So let's say this one is greater than B, whereby A is not greater than B. So this will result to false. But since we have a not here, it will reverse to true. So let's try. There you go. Okay, so that's how you perform a not function. So that's how we trigger that. So which means whatever the process within these parentheses here, or whatever operation not, or in this exclamation represent is the opposite of what is the output of the succeeding value. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing is, after we're going to learn the logical operators, the next thing now is we need to understand how to use assignment operators. Okay, so let's say I have a value of A, or we can change these variables. Let's say X equals to 5, and Y is equals to 10, and Z is equals to 15. Okay, question here. So how do we apply the assigned variables? So let's say what it does is we can assign a variable to a variable. So let's say X is equals to Y. So if you want to save that, there you go. So how this happened? Notice that our original value of X was assigned with a value of 5. But since we assign a new value, which is Y, with a value of 10, this output or captures the new value of X. That makes sense? Okay, so that's how you assign a value within a variable. So let's say we're going to perform the incrementation. So a while ago, we discussed the pos and pre. And this time, I'm going to perform this plus and equals to 1. So what does it shows? So if I save that, there you go. If you see this x is equals, which means that this will increment with the value of this one. So let's say x now is the 5, and I'm going to increment that by 1. So if I'm going to increment that by 2, let's say, there you go. So which means we are allowing this operation to perform or the increment of whatever value succeeding here. So that's how you assign this type of value with the assignment operator. Now, not only that, we can also perform this one. Let's say, aside from increment or plus equal, we can also perform the minus equal, let's say 1. Oops, it should be minus equals to 1. So if I save that, there you go. Also, aside from this one, we can also perform this one, multiplication equal. So if I do that, let's say I'm going to save that, still retain 5. But if I assign this to 2, there you go. So instead of performing as x times 2, this will also performs the same. So this is how we assign the operators in this manner as well. And lastly, okay, not white, so we can also including this operation. Let's say, yeah, so we can use that. X is equals to divided by equals to 2. So this also perform as well. So you can see it returns a value of 2.5. So that also works. And also we can also do a mode percent. So let's say percent equals to 2. If I save that, there you go. So that is how you assign a value to operator. Okay, so that's way back now. So I think we already reached on the next level. So let's make a recap. A while ago, we discussed how to use variables. And also from the variables, we also discussed how to perform the operators using the operator string, comparison, the pos and pre increment and decrement, and logical operators as well, including this last part, which is the assignment operators. Now that we understand the basic of concept in JavaScript, the next thing we need to discuss now is using if condition. Now, in most common programming, we know that we can compare things by using logical operators. But in programming, we can also apply this if condition. So let's say I have a value of bar A is equals to 5 and bar B is equals to 10. Now, in if then else, so we can perform that in this manner. So you can perform this. Oops. We can change that. This is now if condition. If then else. Okay, so how do we perform this one? In if then else, it should be if and the operation. So let's say that A is greater than B. So, okay. Also, we need to enclose that with the open and close curly braces. And this is the cool part. We can use that using alert. So let's say that's A is greater than B. Else, so we can say alert is A, or is A is less than B. Okay, so this is the opposite. So since I won't be using the document, I can comment that out so that it won't affect. Okay. And there you go. Okay. So in JavaScript, you can perform this condition if then else. And also display using this prompt message, which is the alert. So in here, we pop up that A is less than B. Okay, that's cool. So how about we're going to... Yeah, okay, so I think that's the best thing on how to use if condition. So what is this if then else condition? In if then else condition, we can do some comparing stuff. So aside from this one, you can also perform here an else if. So this is the, if you have multiple conditions, let's say if A is equals to B. So we can say that if I copy this one here, then apply here. So they can say that A is equal to B. So let's say I'm going to replace this value here to B. Then save. There you go. Okay, cool. So this is how you implement or write a if then else condition. It's cool, guys. So that's the beauty part with this HTML. Take note, some syntax here are already most common in different programming languages that you know. But the difference is that we can apply that in web programming. So if you're learning an advanced script, these basic conditions are still usable. Okay, so that's cool. Okay, now that we learned the if then else condition, how about let's shift that to the next level. Let's say we're going to learn now the use of switch. Now let's perform a basic syntax using switch. Let's say I'm going to clear this one here. So from the switch, let's say I'm going to perform str. Let's say this is a chicken. So if you're going to perform a switch, so to do that, you need to type switch and the str. Let's say my first case here is a cat. Then alert, oops, it's a cat. And I can pour the alert. You select a cat. Okay. Then from here, we can do a brick. Then I can copy this one here. Let's say, make this one here. So let's say here, I can put, you select a dog. Okay, so next. Let's say from here, I can select a cow. Else, or this is the what you call the default. we can say unknown selection, and break. Okay, so let's try that. And there you go. So if I move this cursor here, okay. So as you can see, we selected a unknown selection because based on my switch here, I selected a unknown selection. So let's try by selecting so let's say, we can move this a little closer. Okay. Okay. Let's say I choose a cat. So let's say I choose a cat. And okay, this one here. There you go. So if I click OK, let's say I'm choosing a cow. And save. You select a cow. Okay. Good. So this is how you perform a switch statement in JavaScript. It's so easy. So basically, the knowledge of what you learned from your previous programming still applies here. So this is how you perform a switch condition. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Okay, this time we're going to discuss about for loop. So how does for loop applies in JavaScript? Now, same goes in what you know with for loop. We can perform that in this manner. Let's say for bar I is equals to 0, then I is less than 5. And then from here, I can increment I with this one. So since we already know what is the meaning of this incrementation, so this will much easier. Okay, so after learning the assign operator, so like I said, we can perform that in this manner. So using for loop, let's say I'm going to apply that in here. I'm going to copy this one. I can assign the variable here. So how does it goes with the output? So if I save that, and let's move this one. There you go. Okay, so that's how you perform a for loop condition. So let's similar to the pause and pray, we can also do the reverse one. So let's say from here, I can do decrementation. So if I save that, okay, so I think that's the okay, so for sure that's an error part, because here what we do is we already assign that as to 0. If that is a less one, so for sure the loop will not take effect. So let's head it back with the increment. Stop. Okay. Let's stop that. Okay, so I think this already started with the endless loop. So I guess I need to reopen this again. So from here, there you go. Okay, so that we're back online. Okay. Now, if this is your first time in running a for loop, you can explore more on how to use this. Let's say you can write is, let's say here, you can say that count and plus. There you go. Now, aside from that, we can also perform a HTML tags within the for loop. So to do that, let's say for this one, since as you notice that our condition here was displayed in one single line. So what we need to do here is we need to break that. So to do that, let's say I'm going to perform a basic syntax of break. So if I save that, there you go. So notice that all the count here pulls down to the next line. So that's the power with JavaScript. Please take note, guys, that you can combine with the basic HTML syntax. If you know HTML5, you can also apply that using this logic. So you can do it in this manner. As you can see, this break function here, this is a attack from HTML. So that's the beauty of HTML5. Okay, so that's for the for loop. Now let's proceed with the next one. Let's clear this up. Now this time, we're going to learn about while condition, or simply as while loop. So how do you perform a while loop in JavaScript? So let's say I have a variable of I is equals to 0. Okay, so from here, we can perform a while condition. Let's say while I is less than 5. So we can put this bracket. And then from here, I can copy this one. Let's say I'm going to print out the I. So I'll be using the break tag again so that we have a nice presentation. Also, we can perform the incrementation. So from here, I can do a I++, which means increment by 1. So if I save that, and there you go. Okay, so that's it. So this is also how you perform a while condition. Cool, isn't it? So if you are familiar with while, JavaScript also can perform the while condition. Okay, so let's move to the next one. This time, we're going to learn how to use do while condition. So we're going to clear this up. Okay. So to perform a do while condition, basically we start it with do. And then from here, we can perform the, okay, we'll be using the document should be fine. So document dot write. And let's say you're going to assign the I variable. Then from here, we can perform the incrementation. Okay. So in do while, the condition follows down bottom. So that is, let's say I is less than 5. Okay, so let's put a break next to this one. So let's say break. If I save that, and there you go. So just to make sure that we are, this one is the same. So I'm going to change this to 1. Then save. There you go. Okay. So this is how you perform a do while condition. So similar to for loop, while loop. So do while always takes the condition next to this line here. So that's how we perform a do while in JavaScript. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so I'm going to erase this one. Okay, now that we learned this type of while conditions, for loop, and if, The next thing we need to learn now is how to perform a function. So let's say, I want to clear this one. Okay, how to perform a function in JavaScript. So in function, okay, simply you can start with function. Let's say from here we can perform as show message, and I can say we can tell that let's say document dot write hello world. Okay, so with this syntax, you can simply call this function from here in this manner. So I want to call show message. Okay, if I save that, there you go. Now, if you're writing a programming in JavaScript, this is how you perform a function. So what if I'm going to pass out a variable? So let's say, aside from this type, I can pass a variable, let's say first name, and last name. Okay, so that's the assigned variable. So if I copy this one here, so I can put that, let's say hello last name. So hello, this one. Okay, so let's say here I can say wiki, let's say no. So if I save that, there you go. Now this is another way. So if I expand this so that you can see. Okay, so notice that these two variables here are little close. So let's make a tab next to that. So to do that, I just improvise by adding a space in between. So if you see, so this is how we preview that. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's it. So this is how you perform a function in JavaScript. So as you notice that in the way that the normal programming that you know, using your common programming type, in JavaScript, you can also perform that as well without hesitation or limitation with the variables declaration. So like I said a while ago, if you assign an integer, JavaScript will automatically detect that as an integer. If you assign that as a string, the same goes, it will treat that as a string. And whatever operations, it will treat that as it is. So we can combine for whatever operations you apply. So that's how we manage to work this function show message. Okay, so aside from this one, you can fill this with multiple function as you like. So but for now, so this is how we execute a function in JavaScript. Okay, cool. Okay, so this will be the last one. Now aside from this one, I'm going to erase this one. Very important that in JavaScript, we can also handle to what you call array. So there are so many ways how to display this or declare. So the first one is we can declare this as cons. Let's say I'm going to assign this as fruits. Here I can call this as apple, banana, and papaya. Okay, So this is the first one on how you declare a array. Now the next one is we can also perform this in this manner. So let's say cons fruits fruits like this one. Let's say if I copy this one, so we can also assign that in this manner. So 0, this is 1, this is 2. So same goes. We can assign that as apple. Here we can assign that as banana. And papaya. Okay, so this is the next one. Okay, so this is the next part on how to assign an array. Now the third one, that which is common in assigning an array is using this one. Let's say cons fruits. You can assign this in this manner. So new array and you can assign that these variables or values within this. Okay, so this is one of the common value or assigned variables in array. So let's say we need to explore this more. So if you're performing an array, so arrays are identical variables, but they are considered different by using an index. So this value here, these are the index. So this is the assigned position within the same variable. So that's array does. So let's perform a simple operation using array. So let's say I'm going to clear this one here. I'm going to perform var I. Let's say going to call a var employee of new array. So let's say I'll assigning 3 people for this example. So I can assign that in this manner. So 0, 1, so this should be 1, 2. So let's say each this should be cn and this should be mix. Okay, so from here we can perform a for loop. Let's say I is equals to 0, then I is less than emp that length. Okay, then from I we can increment that. So let's say you can put a document that write m I, and I'm going to break that so that we have a good preview. So let's see how does it looks like in the browser. So if I save that, there you go. Okay, cool. So this is the end of this chapter, guys. So if you want to enhance or ask, or if you want to suggest more on this topic, we can make a video series on how or expand more about or learning more about JavaScript. So don't you worry, we'll be covering up this on the next video series. So again, so this is how you execute or perform a JavaScript. So the last part here is the array. So this also helps on your development. As you can see, all here are uh, all the logic here are applied on the basic syntax that you know already. So same goes. So whatever application or method that you wish to perform in JavaScript, you can also perform here. Okay. So like I said, guys, if you found this video informative, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys in the next video series. Cheers!